Under wrench, our second menu is the boom nozzle menu. There's quite a bit to this menu. The first menu item that you come to is nozzle bounds. Here, this is got to do with the capstan PWM coils, solenoids that are mounted on the spray nozzle bodies. You can set a minimum PWM percent to these. So if you didn't want them to go below 20% duty cycle, you could come into this PWM minimum and program in 20, then they wouldn't go below that threshold. You can program in a maximum PWM value if you didn't want them to only go to 75% duty cycle, for example. You could put that in there. We would always recommend you leave that at 100. You can change the nozzle pulse frequency. You have an option in here to pulse them at 1 hertz, 2, 4, 5, 10, or 20 hertz. We do recommend that you keep that at a 10 hertz pulse rate, although you do have the flexibility to change that. A low pressure shutoff. We don't want you to put any settings in this field. What will happen is if you put a pressure in here, anytime that the PinPoint detects a boom pressure below this threshold, it'll turn those solenoids off. So we'll deal with that in a separate way than putting it into this menu. Just know that leave that low pressure shutoff at 0. So valve type, this is not an active field right now. It's always going to be set to no flow detection. Valve diagnostics I have set to coil only because this is my demo stand. But what you will do is set that to enabled, and that way it's going to be looking at both the plunger health and the coil health. When I set this to coil only, it's only monitoring the health of the coil, and I don't have any plungers on my demo stand. 0 speed spray, we're going to leave that setting to disabled unless you are trying to spray sitting still. So that sets up our nozzle bounds. The third menu option on here is boom sway, and that is not an active field right now, so you don't have to worry about populating or doing anything within that menu. It's inactive. So the last menu item that we come into here is we have nozzle setup. So here's where you're going to come in and program in all your nozzles. So you can see that you've got each of your nozzles listed across here. And you can use this arrow to scroll between nozzles. You can use this double arrow to go an entire screen of nozzles over. The other thing you can do is you can actually just come up here and you can click on any particular nozzle that you wanted to click on. It's going to give you some information, much like PinPoint 2 on that nozzle. It's going to give you a rank for that nozzle. In this case, this is nozzle number 18, or an even nozzle. It's going to give you a flow value 1.0. This nozzle is going to put out 100% of the target flow rate. The valve size in this case is a 15.5. So that's going to be a coil with a black wire. This has a tip size programmed in of a number 10 tip. You may have something closer to a number 2 tip on your machine, so I'll put in a number 2 tip. You're about to change all nozzles in the selected profile. Would you like to continue? You hit yes, and now any nozzle that we click on after this is going to obviously be retaining that number 2 tip size. The field over here, the soft boom field, we're going to have a separate tutorial on how to program soft booms, and aux boom we'll leave alone. Your left, right, fore, aft positions are just where this nozzle is in relation on the boom for the shutoff measurements that it sends back across to the isobus controller. You also in PinPoint 3 have the option to custom name profiles. So let's say that nozzle number 20 was one of my wheel tracks, and I wanted it to put out 1.2x the target rate, or 20% more flow than the nozzles around it to help with that dust around the wheel tracks. So now I can come over here on this boom 1, and I could change the text on this to just for simplicity, WT for wheel tracks. So now whenever I'm out on my home screen, you can see I know that whenever I select this profile now, it's not boom 1, it's actually going to be wheel track profile. And within nozzle setup, Other than that, you can click on this box. You can turn a valve on from here. It's not the ideal place to do it, but it is a possibility. So again, this is pretty basic setup. The only thing that is going to be a new setup is adding the ability to have a custom profile name from PinPoint 2, and this soft boom assignments and how we're going to handle those is a really nice upgrade from PinPoint 2, and we'll get into how we handle those in a separate tutorial.